He digs up an old photograph from decades earlier, a picture showing a woman who looks exactly like Sophia standing in a scene she never lived through as a newcomer. Rather than bringing the discovery to Boyd or anyone else who might have backed him up, he takes the photo straight to Sophia herself. Sophia confirms what the photograph proves without hesitation. The man in yellow only wears the faces of residents already dead and buried in this town. Every season of From buries a body with the chest torn open, Megan in the pilot, the colony house slaughter, Tian Chen. Fans wrote the wound off as a monster feeding the way monsters feed. Season 4 finally answers the question nobody asked out loud. Why the same wound on every body across every season? The answer starts with the man in yellow, and Season 4 opens with him standing over Jim Matthews in the woods, finishing what the Season 3 finale started. Jim bleeds out while Julie watches from wherever her time jumps drop her, and the man in yellow turns to ask her when she came from, treating her arrival as one more repeat in a story he has watched play out again and again. He tells her a finished story never gets rewritten, and before he finishes the thought, Julie vanishes on her own, leaving him confused for a moment, an emotion he rarely shows anyone. A dead body needs a new disguise fast, and the man in yellow finds one on the road leading into town. A pastor and his daughter crash their car into the post office, and the whole township rallies around the survivors the way Fromville always rallies around anyone new. Kenny sits with the daughter, a young woman named Sophia, and walks her through the basics of life in a town nobody escapes. Sophia takes the information calmly, almost too calmly, and asks Kenny to pray with her because she believes God stays present everywhere, even here. Kenny obliges her mostly to keep her settled after the crash. The pastor never wakes up. Sophia wakes him herself, long enough for him to hear the truth before she ends his life. She was never his daughter. She is the man in yellow, wearing a new face because too many residents already know what the old one looks like. She promises him and herself the best part still waits ahead, the moment the town turns on itself and tears itself apart from the inside. Julie hands you the clue, tying every ripped open chest across 4 seasons into one answer. Deep in a story-walking trip back through Victor's childhood, she watches he barely escapes his notice. He senses her, lunges toward her, and Randall yanks her back out before he closes the distance between them. This single scene rewrites everything season. The storm destroying the radio tower years earlier, the crops burned overnight, the sudden disappearances blamed on wandering into the woods after dark. Every early scare gets read as random cruelty from an unknowable force. Season 4 draws a straight line from the early chaos to one figure with a specific need, a specific hunger, and a specific reason for staying close to the people he intends to consume. Sophia spends the early weeks of the season building trust the same way any patient predator builds trust, slowly and without pressure. She chooses her next target with care. Sarah, the one resident who already knows exactly what the town's darker whispers push a person to do. Sophia moves in with her, and not long after, Sarah fights the voices at first, the way she fought them the first time around, but the fight drains her faster every day Sophia stays under the same roof. Residents around her notice the shift without understanding the cause, and whisk to the bottle tree and never came back. The confession breaks something loose in Henry, and the dig gives Sophia her cleanest opportunity of the season. Boyd and his crew plan an expedition into the underground graveyard to pull up the remains of the Enqui children, the one lead anyone believes might finally break the cycle trapping the town. While the crew preps gear and studies the tunnels, Sophia slips away from the group unnoticed and damages a link in the rope ladder they plan to use to climb back out once the bones are recovered. Nobody checks the ladder again before the expedition begins, and nobody has a reason to suspect the quiet newcomer who spends her days praying and grieving in plain sight. Elgin becomes the resident who finally corners her with proof, and the cost of the discovery lands on him alone. Still carrying guilt from the way he wronged Fatima the season before, Elgin spends his free hours digging through Old Town records, hoping to redeem himself by exposing the real threat everyone else keeps missing. He digs up an old photograph from decades earlier, a picture showing a woman who looks exactly like Sophia standing in a scene she never lived through as a newcomer. Rather than bringing the discovery to Boyd or anyone else who might have backed him up, he takes the photo straight to Sophia herself. Sophia confirms what the photograph proves without hesitation. The man in yellow only wears the faces of residents already dead and buried in this town. Recycled disguise after disguise across generations. She offers Elgin a way out, telling him the ending draws close and the final stretch turns messy for everyone still standing. Elgin starts praying instead of answering her. Sophia kills him where he kneels. Everything Sophia set up across the season collides at once during the expedition. Boyd and his crew pull the ancient bottle tree free from the ground and lower the same rope ladder Sophia already sabotaged down into the graveyard. Tabitha starts climbing first, and the frayed link gives out exactly where Sophia damaged the rope, sending her falling back into the dark tunnels below. Seconds later, the sky above town goes black in the middle of the day, proof the residents lost the one rule keeping the creatures pinned underground during daylight hours. The earthquake triggered by the tree's removal reaches every corner of town at once. Back at the clinic, the shaking knocks a protective talisman loose from the hook, without anyone noticing the gap in time to stop what comes next. Smiley walks straight through the opening left behind, and the chaos above ground spreads faster than the darkness spreading across the sky. Boyd and the rest of the crew scramble for their vehicles, chased by creatures free to hunt in broad daylight for the first time the town has ever seen. Streets which once emptied out safely under a working sun now offer no shelter at all. And residents who never worried about stepping outside during daylight hours suddenly have nowhere safe left to stand. Every resident who spent the season trusting the wrong stranger pays the price on the same afternoon, whether they crossed paths with Sophia directly or not. Henry's unraveling reaches its own breaking point during the same stretch of chaos. And the timing tells you everything about how far the man in yellow's reach extends without him lifting a single finger. Convinced the whole town amounts to nothing more than a dream keeping him trapped away from his real family, Henry arms himself and turns the weapon toward his own son. Believing the only way home runs through ending Victor's life. Victor knocks the gun away before Henry manages to pull the trigger, and the two men survive the encounter. But the moment stands as proof of exactly how much damage a single confession about the man in yellow does to a mind already worn thin by grief and fear. Nobody needs claws or fangs to tear a family apart when patience and suggestion already do the job on their own. The final scene of the season belongs to Sophia and a figure the show calls the boy in white, someone who has spent the whole run positioned against the man in yellow rather than beside him. He meets her in the woods and tells her the residents still won something today. Jade and Tabitha recovered the children's bones despite everything she threw at them. Sophia does not argue the point because she does not need to. She reminds him the bottle tree came down regardless, and from where she stands, the loss of the tree outweighs anything the residents managed to pull out of the graveyard. The exchange confirms something viewers only suspected before this season. Whatever the bottle tree protected, the tree worked as a check on both sides of this fight. Not only as a barrier keeping residents safe from monsters. Put every piece from the season next to each other, and the pattern behind the man in yellow's whole game finally comes into focus. He never limits himself to killing outright when manipulation gets the same result with less risk to himself. He whispers voices back into Sarah's head instead of attacking her directly. Season 5 opens with every resident carrying the same unanswered question. The man in yellow already wore the face of a grieving pastor's daughter for an entire season without anyone catching him in time. Nobody left standing in Fromville trusts a new arrival, a returning friend, or even a familiar face without wondering what walked in wearing the same face first.